So thanks all for coming today. This is was going to be part one of a two-part meeting. Today was going to be talking about, and that's what it is going to be about today, is Kevin Innes is going to teach people how to run an effective meeting, how to get the most out of the people there, how to draw people out, and primarily how to reach consensus, which is a very, very powerful thing. Once you learn how to do this, instead of going into a meeting where everyone knows, okay, some of the people are going to agree, some of the people aren't going to agree, and there's going to be a vote, and if you're on the wrong side, you're going to get left out. When you go into a meeting and you're all agreeing that everyone's going to agree before you come out of that meeting, it changes the whole dynamic. It changes how everybody's thinking, and it really changes the power of what comes out of it, because everybody's connected, everybody's focused in the same direction, and everybody feels like they've been heard. There's more to it than that. There's a lot of subtle things, but Kevin is really a master at this, and for what we're going through right now in our community, we need this. So, Kevin Innes.
Hi.
Thank you. Yes.
Wonderful to be in Fairfield, a jewel of the country, I think, because people are motivated to do some great things. People have been doing things to improve their lives for many years, decades, many of us, and now many of us want to put our goodness that we have inside into creating a great society all around us. Fairfield is facing some very interesting issues. Wasn't that, may you live in interesting times, the Chinese curse, yes? And so we're in an interesting time right now where we can rise to the challenge and start looking for ways to work together. It takes some effort. It takes patience, tolerance, perseverance, and a few skills that I can share with you. But this is an ongoing process that you can continue to learn on your own as well as in the process of doing. So we have, I'm going to be going through a number of points, and I may not get through the entire agenda that I had people put out there because people want to get deeper into each of these subjects. But meetings are an important part of the process, right? How do you bring folks together in ways that they feel respected, their skills honored, and their time honored? So it's very important for there to be certain components with this. And an important starting place for any meeting is to meet your neighbor. Say hello to your neighbor. And if you haven't already done so, but maybe somebody you haven't met before. All right. Yeah. And so, isn't that part of the fun, getting to know some of the great people who share the same values that you do? And so I'm going to go through a couple of points. I had mentioning facilitative listening skills. Listening is so much. We've got 2 ears, only 1 mouth. Let's listen twice as much as or 3 times as much as we do the talking. How are you going to learn things if you keep this thing going, your mouth going? So, respecting diverse communication styles. That seems to be self-evident, but we tend to express ourselves in ways that we think a lot of other people should be expressing themselves the same way, right? We have diverse communication styles. Now, of course, it needs to start off from a place of goodwill and wanting to improve the situation and not be there just to disturb things, but we might misinterpret it. So to step back from their particular style and say, well, they've got a different style of communication right now. Let me hear their approach. Alex Jones, anybody know him? Yeah. I did not like that guy's style at all, but he has great information. And so I tolerated his style, kind of evangelistical, and I've got some great inspiration from some of the things that he talked about. Paraphrasing. Who could tell me what paraphrasing is? I think some of you have done this. Nonviolent communication. What would paraphrasing be?
To say the words what the person said.
What you said 10 ways.
To say the same thing in other ways.
To paraphrase, it's saying similar things. Exactly.
Usually in a
different way.
shorter format.
Precisely, and it links to other things that are drawing people out. Somebody who hasn't mentioned anything for some time.
What do you think? Which one of these seem to be important for you? Everybody take a look here. There's a lot of different points. Paraphrasing, drawing people out, mirroring, gathering ideas, stacking, tracking, encouraging, balancing, making space for a quiet person, acknowledging feelings, validating, emphasizing, intention,
All of them.
empathizing, sorry. Intentional silence, linking, listening for common ground, listening with a point of view, summarizing. Each of these we could spend a whole hour on.
What is stacking? That's why you did it.
We're going to have a moment of silence. If you could look over each of these and think about a question or a comment you'd like to make for a moment. Which of these really stand out for you?
Balancing.
Balancing. And what does that mean for you?
That means that you hear different points of view, and that there seems to be a spirit of cooperation within the group as you proceed.
Yes. Okay, great.
Listening for common ground.
Listening for common ground. That's
If you have a common goal common goal in mind, but you're starting from a different point, and all you got to do is find where all these points converge on an individual basis.
Anybody ever run into the yes but syndrome? Get that but out of there. How about yes and would be listening for common ground? Anything else come up, people? Yes?
Whatever was a moment of silence.
A moment of silence.
But I always think about that in terms of the other person.
What is the play?
We're clear on that.
Who's done does a lot of speaking? Ed Hipp, I believe, is he a Toastmaster? Is he here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ed's not here.
Oh, okay.
Well,
The pregnant pause, right? To reinforce what has just been said, give a chance for people to think about it, and the next thing said would be emphasized. Another point, Beth? You?
Validating seems to me at the bottom opening. When you open the door, you should say you're valuable. What you say is valuable. How you say it is your way of saying it. And just say, and either support with something else you know that validates it if they need it validated. But mainly make them feel like they're at least as important as anybody else in the room. Because we so often think, well, we got the 3 hot shots here. We got the 3 that never open their mouth. We got 2 that are actually against what we're talking about. And that just stops the whole meeting with no hope. You can't validate where you're coming from.
So when invalidating, one feels respected. Is that what I hear you say? Right.
Respected and seen.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Yes. Another point? Yes. Stacking.
That's important.
Stacking.
Gaining up
Okay.
on other people.
All right. Here's an
Getting what?
here's an example. Okay. Here's an example. Who would like to spend? Would like to make another comment on any of these questions? Who would like another or comments? Anybody else want to make any more comments? Raise your hands.
can I add one?
Okay. 1, 2. Do you have another?
I want to add one.
Okay, we have 2 other people who want to make another comment on what what we have up here. And then I would say, okay, who had their hands up before? 1 and 2. Okay, so that's stacking, where you see how many more people have questions, and then you're first, and you'll be second. Okay, which point would you like to address?
Question. Would these be used when we're meeting with, say, the people from Heartland Co-op? Would we want to be using these?
Yes, this is what a facilitator would do all the way through a meeting. If there's a topic that comes up, you can apply each of these techniques in supporting and encouraging and drawing out creativity and the ideas of the group in ways that validates them and empathizes with their views and helps the group to do the same. Did you have does that address
So
your...
even if there are opposing goals, you would use these qualities?
Oh, yes. Yes. It's in that contrast of ideas in trying to find the common ground that a creative solution will be found. Yes? Oh, sorry. I mean, actually, he was first.
I'm on the stack.
He's on the stack. Right. Now, I did want to make a comment that often in meetings, as those who have attended my other meeting process skills class, it's good to have a vibes watcher, somebody who can also watch the stack, because sometimes the facilitator gets busy with things and forgets. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious about the second last one. It sounds a little out of keeping with the others.
What's the name of it?
Listening with a point of view.
Listening with a point of view. I have actually that point and as another sheet,
Okay.
and that specifically will be addressed. And it's briefly, it's if you have an expert, or in this case, I'm doing a class, so I would be giving information, putting it out, and then I would sort of facilitate that discussion as a quote-unquote expert, validating, emphasizing, getting points from the group, and then respond to that. Okay?
So the point of view is just kind of a central organizing.
It's like a mini discussion, sort of like a mini discussion that an expert would be conducting, because like asking questions. Like for instance, if an attorney was in here that we invited to talk about a particular subject, he would be listening with his point of view of the legal ramifications, would take Q&A, basically. Yeah. Yes?
There's three words that all kind of fit around the same idea: open-minded, closed-minded, and flexible. If a person is open-minded, they're usually flexible. If they're closed-minded, they're not. And if you find somebody that's flexible or closed-minded, then this empathy, gathering ideas, drawing people out, they all come into play when you consider someone, because people come to meetings with closed-mindedness.
Well, it's good to then, everyone knows before the meetings start what the meeting's about and how the decisions will be made. So those with the closed mind, is my way or the highway, they need to look at whether that's the appropriate meeting for them to be in. If it's majority rule, then maybe they can get their way, but they stand to actually gain much more if they could
Well, if they're open-minded, then they'll listen to what you have to say. And
right.
What you're trying to do, this is where you look, you find out where they are,
yes.
what's important to them, and then show them how this reaches their goal.
Exactly. And their goal may be just sharing information, their point of view, which is fine. It has its place as well. Any other point on this? Yes?
Not a comment, question. What is tracking and what is linking?
Okay. Tracking would be if you have, now if I had a whiteboard up here or something, there would be a discussion, a lot of brainstorming discussions, right? And ideas. I put, okay, over here, here's a train of thought on this subject. Here would be another one. Here, and as people are talking, I would ask, would this go under this category? And so you might have, with one particular discussion, like 3 different strands going on at the same time. It might seem chaotic, but having it up on a board where people can see, oh, we're not being drawn apart. We have this overall structure that we can plug in as it occurs. Much more effective, and it keeps people on track. And what was the other one? Linking. To link a facilitator or someone else could say, okay, well, that point links to this other point over here. You know, you could have different groups and see how they relate. Public relations interacts with letter writing or something. Okay? That kind of linking. Okay, Mark, let's have another slide. Point of view. Okay, here we go. Groups later. If everyone just take a second, you can read it faster than I can say it out to you. If you scroll us a little bit down there, Mark, over on the side, just pull that down slightly.
That was good, Mark.
He's quick.
Very flexible. Again, thank you, Bruce.
As I was saying, on the other hand, she adopted the facilitator's mindset, as I was mentioning. And so, people about done?
On the second column.
Okay. Yeah. So on the second column, there's a 5-step process. You raise the issue, the expert, state your position, ask for reactions, and then respond to participants' comments, right? Paraphrasing, drawing people out, which for an authority, maybe some would be hesitant. So it's important for that person who's listening with a point of view to encourage people to speak that where they wouldn't normally, and the vibes watcher can help with that too. Yeah, and then make statements that reflect your own perspective, answer questions, provide information, and then repeat those steps again. So that's what that was. Let's go. Yes, did you have a point?
Could we get a copy?
Yes, you had a point?
Just quick on this one. So
yes.
This one, to me, sounds like you said, there's someone who's got a point of view, who probably thinks he knows what the right approach is or solution to a problem. Is that sort of the idea here?
No, it's more reserved for somebody who has a specific expertise, or a group's leader for a or like say if this was a business and I was the boss, right? And so, or we had the IT guy come in, and people want to have some technical questions answered. I, as a facilitator, would hand it over to him to be doing his point of view about how to approach internet issues, and then people would pose questions, give them feedback, and facilitate. Encourage people to be drawn out, and then it would revert back to the facilitator again. So it's not like somebody.
Is the purpose of it, it's listening to a point of view and then trying to? I don't quite get the.
It's like It's like a facilitation of discussion with you as the resource person answering questions
about a point of view.
You're listening with a point of view because of the expertise you have on a particular issue. It's kind of a misnomer of sorts. It's not just point of view. Your point of view is as the expert that people are wanting to get information from.
Yes, and therefore you need to present that point of view.
Yes.
And let people bounce off it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and ask clarifying questions and various other things. Yeah, pertinent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, next one. So balancing is. Take a moment. If you move that down a little bit, that may not be clear about what that is. What are other ways of looking at this issue? Does everyone agree with this perspective? Somebody might say something, and maybe it's a little bit different than everyone else's has. Let's balance this out. Can anyone play devil's advocate for a few minutes? Let's see how many people stand on each side of this issue. Not making a decision, not a vote, okay? And there's different ways of doing that too. Called range. Who's heard of range voting? Range voting? No? Okay, a couple of you? Okay. Range voting is, say, we have a lot of very nice restaurants in town, okay? And we want to make a decision which place we're all going to go. I mean, we're all going to eat anyways, right? But we could have a list of 5 restaurants. And each person, say 5 restaurants, we've got 5 stars, right? Each of us can use our stars, all 5 on one, because you really want that one. Or maybe 3 on one, 1 on one, and 1 on another one. So you can weight the voting so that you get more of a true representation of how strongly people feel about a certain restaurant they go to. Okay? And so then you add up all the stars, and whichever one's got the most is the one that the restaurant you go to. So that would be another way to get opinions from the whole group. Okay? That pretty straightforward? Okay, drawing people out. This is very good. Here's examples. Can you say more about that? By the way, who has facilitated meetings before? As purely a facilitator. Okay? Really important to be patient, to be clear, and to encourage people to say more about the topic at times. Maybe they just have a small amount of information. Again, what's coming up for you now? Can you give me an example? How is that working for you? What does this bring up for you? What matters to you about that? Tell me more, especially for shy people or those that are not used to speaking in front of a group. Okay? All right, another slide. Okay, 10 common tactics for mishandling a lengthy list. Okay, so you've done some brainwashing. Brainstorming. Brainstorming. Okay, you have the common way to do it. You start talking, and people are like rushing to make a decision. Okay, well, that's enough discussion. Let's make a decision on this, right? And not everybody's in support, and it's majority rule. Well, how about having more diversity, more crazy ideas, more things that people can come up with? Let's draw it out a little bit more. Well, you've got a whole list of different things that we can do the next while to support community. Too big of a list. So, mishandling, okay, roll up a flip chart, put them on your desk. End of that, right? Let's take a break, and then they never come back. Let's categorize these quickly and then move on. And then 2 hours later, who's heard that one?
Me?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you publish the list in the next newsletter to show everyone that your group is making progress. But you don't do anything with it. Vaguely recall a similar list that was generated meeting last year, then postpone further consideration of the list until the old one could be found. After all, we don't want to do the same work all over again. Right? Have someone go away and sort the list, then at the next meeting forget to put that person on the agenda. Give the flip charts up to my administrative assistant, right? Yeah. Assume that every item is now taken care of. Later explain bitterly about the problem that still exists. I thought we decided on, whatever. Try to shorten the list by combining items, then argue over the meaning of each item. Congratulate yourself on a very productive meeting. Right? Okay, what's the next one is a different way of doing this. Okay, well, where did the other one go? Maybe it's fun. So here's something. We went over those points. I should dwell on that. Other meetings, it's good to have a sheet of paper, and part of the process is to have a note taker, someone who would write it on, or the facilitator can do that, as well as someone who is a secretary and types it up and gives the information of the decisions, who is there, what you decided, when the next meeting is, and as we are doing now, passing around a list for their email addresses. Is that going around? Yes. And so that we can follow up next time, right? And until the next meeting, have previously, and ones that people can add to that agenda list. So injunctions against thinking in public. Look at some of these. Which one pops out for you that really, haven't we already been around that block? Right? Don't confuse me with the facts.
Where'd that come from?
Right. Getting pretty intellectual here, aren't we? Hurry up, we're running out of time. You're not being clear. Enough joking around. Let's get back to business. This really stymies any kind of creative ideas. Too early. I was at a meeting recently with some very intellectual folks, and I know I bring a suggestion, and yeah, but we can't do that, And then what about just so? This is not the time for pragmatism. This is the time just to get ideas bubbling up, and a crazy idea, somebody else might get a good idea that kind of branches off from that crazy one. All right, next. So what would it be like if you were in an environment where you had these things that people were saying about your ideas? Look at some of these.
You're good at all these. Especially that I know this might be too difficult.
Before we change the subject, let's make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. Right? Yes?
Is there like some time limit of everybody so everyone gets equal time to speak? Because sometimes at group meetings it seems like one person will talk 20 minutes and then there's no time for any of the other people to give their ideas, their creative ideas.
Great idea. Everybody break up in groups of 3 around where you are and talk about which of these would hit home mostly for you. Take 3 minutes to do that. Okay? Yes, right now. Everybody have groups of 3, meet together, and tell what is the one that really hits home for you on supportive that you'd like to hear.
Okay, which one?
Take your time. Does anyone have a word? And I can see you have a hard time putting this on words for trying. That must have felt bad, even though we don't see eye to eye on the seashore. We keep seeing it. It's one of you go. Is this what you're saying? Well, to be an example, yes.
When you're expressing yourself to the group, which of these statements then would have hit home for you? Did you find out in your group? What was it back there?
Say it.
If somebody says something that's completely off the wall, you could say something like, that's a very interesting viewpoint. I never would have thought of that. Very creative.
Okay, that's patient. Yeah, good.
It all depends on what your definition of is.
Yes?
There's two that kind of go together. Hold on, I think she has a point here. What would be an example of that?
Okay, good.
If I gave an opinion and someone said, "What's your opinion?" after I said it, I would feel a little strange.
What would be supportive? Then what would be supportive of what we are?
Well, most of them were supportive.
Okay. Okay.
I know this might be difficult for you. It sounds like they're saying you're stupid.
Yeah.
It depends on the tone, and then we'll get into that in a second. Yes.
Yeah, that was the only one that I objected to. I instead of saying something like, I know this might be difficult for you, I would probably say something like, this is a complex issue, we need to break it down into smaller parts so we can all go through it and understand it. Something like that, rather than, it might be difficult for you, you dummy.
Okay, briefly, Beth. Breathe.
Sometimes we literally use different language sets and they really don't know what we mean. Or we might have a great language set, but they don't know what we mean, and we've said something that's out of their language set. And it's not saying you're dumb. Said I don't.
It's a different communication style,
yeah,
right?
I just don't hear you right. Please tell me again.
Thank you.
And I do that.
That's actually not the one we wanted to talk about. The one we wanted to talk about is I can see you're having a hard time.
That's
but
the one.
instead of words, keep trying. One of the things that we thought that I have done before is, I know you've got a real important point here, and I'm not quite wrapping my head around it. Could you say it in other words again and restate it so we can go through it a little better?
Okay, yeah, that's something anybody in the group can address, as well as the facilitator. This is very good facility. Any other points on this? Okay. Press.
Well, I'm wondering what Mark just said.
Oh, okay. Here's a little exercise. Now, in addressing your point about tone of voice, imagine I put the word O-H. O. Okay? All right? So every time I go like this, I'd like to hear the word O from everybody, okay? The simple word O says very little as you see it written here. However, when we say the word O, it can have many different meanings according to how it is spoken. I'm going to read you some different intentions after I read each one. Please convey that intention by saying the word O in the appropriate
tone. No. You got
tone of voice. Okay. You surprised me. I made a mistake. You're a pain in the neck. You make me so very happy. I'm bored. I'm fascinated. I understand. I don't understand. Different inflections in the voice can make a big difference in how you come across, isn't it? So think well before you speak, and the tone of voice. And it starts with your inner patience, perseverance, and tolerance of other people's styles. Okay?
Oh, really?
Would you agree? Okay, next slide. Okay, so we did a little bit of this before about how to stimulate discussion. You can do different formats, and we went over this on Saturday with last week yesterday. on different ways to bring out ideas from the group. You can do this also in if there's a contentious topic or an emotional topic. If you have a particular person who's dominating the meeting, it's very often they want to be heard. They've got something really pressing, and maybe there's more than one in that group. A small group discussion would give them more time, as we just did a few moments ago. Each person got more time to express themselves and to share their ideas, which they'll find out is common with many others. So here's a few. Just go clockwise, which is fine for a small group, hard with a big group. You can toss the beanbag, wherever it goes, or that person speaks next. Now, 2 or 3, just 2 or 3 feeling words about this topic. All right, that's it. Right? 7, or you can do 7 words or less. Pardon me?
Could you give an example of that too?
Example, I'm tired and happy. Can you see the screen?
Energized.
OMG.
BS.
Corporations are starting to dominate, are making attempts to dominate this community. 2 or 3 feeling words about that.
Very concerned.
Afraid.
No, yeah, concerned.
That's fine. 1 word's fine too. Yes.
Angry.
Disappointed. Upset.
Aggravated.
Feeling powerless.
Community disunity.
All of the above.
Okay. For example, especially with the topic, gives an opportunity for many people to express themselves just where they're coming from, briefly. Popcorn takes a turn whenever they choose. Then when most have spoken, the facility asks who still hasn't had a turn. We sort of did that just a moment ago. And a talking stick, which you can also use a microphone, right? Yeah, those are different ways to get the whole group to participate. And a facilitator can mix up the meeting by including some elements of this too. Next one. Okay, different mindsets for solving problems, okay? Now, the either-or method, the majority rule method, that, the boss decides method, that's, the committee decides and they just want, One could be competitive, one could be collaborative, all right? I like to work in a collaborative environment, but not in all situations is a decision have to be collaborative. Like we could have the range voting, for instance. We all go to dinner. It doesn't really matter that much, in real important ways which restaurant we go to. Type of outcome expected could be win-lose, or is it win-win? Attitude toward winning. To the victor goes the spoils. Your success is my success. Attitude toward losing. Someone has to lose. If someone loses, everyone loses. Attitude towards minority opinions, get with the program. Or everyone has a piece of the truth. Why explore differences between competing solutions to search for bargaining chips and preparation for the horse trading and compromise that goes behind closed doors? To build a shared framework of understanding and preparation for mutual creative thinking. Essential mental activity is analyze and then break the whole into parts. Right? It's typically the either-or system, right? Or synthesize, integrate, put the parts into wholes. And so as you're in the meeting, see how you can link up with other people's ideas. How long it takes? It's usually faster in the short run, but the other method is faster in the long run. And that's because the decisions, maybe people rush to decision a little too early in relationships, in major life decisions, and all kinds of things in working in committee. And if you take a little bit longer to build that foundation, the implementation phase takes place a lot faster. Yes, TJ?
One of my favorite sayings is sometimes slower is faster.
The tortoise and the hare, right?
What comes late comes solid. It seems like corporations are built on the competitive mode. That's built into their existence. That's how they operate. It's survival of the fittest. It's dog eat dog. So can you collaborate with a competitive entity that exists in those terms?
That's the whole mindset.
Well, it's one planet. One affects the other. And a confrontational attitude, it just makes one side or the other just dig in their heels, right? And so thinking in terms of the other interests is what corporations also do in trying to, of course, further their agenda. But they have to think, or at least give that impression they're trying to think in terms of the other's interests in order to do it. At least.
They're not trying to give that impression. No, they're not even trying to give the impression at this point.
They don't care.
They're not.
Well, okay, but that's a whole discussion in itself. So how to deal with that? And the problem, we're talking about what can we do. We're creating a society that we invite others into. This is our community. Corporation, you're coming into our community. This is how it works. And you're going to find out very soon how it's going to work if you don't play ball with us. This is our play field.
It's kind of related to having a goal, some kind of a specific goal. I mean, you come together to meet something, you want to arrive at a goal, and you're not saying specifically, maybe generally a goal, but not specifically, because if it's specific, then you got to go by certain guidelines. But if it's general, then you got a few more paths that you can go. But there's another issue here that hasn't been brought up specifically. Have you read The Republican Brain?
No.
Well, let me tell you what it has discovered.
Okay, briefly.
That the brains of Republicans and many businessmen, the area of the brain that is supposed to be active when that person is feeling empathy, doesn't work. They don't have the empathy, the ability. It's not that they're bad, they just don't have that ability.
Okay. All right, thank you for your information.
So they're working out of the either way.
Okay, so when to use it? This win-lose, when expedience is more important than durability, either or thinking will usually produce satisfactory results, right? That's the main priority is, speed. They're not concerned about longevity, right? The best corporations are those that have been flexible and have adjusted the situation to get into more markets. And then they screw them. When all parties have the power to block any decision and the issue is for high stakes, both and thinking is usually the only hope for resolution, isn't it? Right? And the underlying philosophy, survival of the fittest, interdependence of all things is the other approach. Okay? Very different atmosphere created. So, let's get back into brainstorming methods. This is kind of neat too. Seat members around a table, have someone state the problem to be solved, ask each person to silently write down 4 ideas for solving a problem on one sheet of paper. It's good to give scope in a meeting for folks with different type of learning and processing styles. I don't know about you, but very often I'll go to a lecture, I'll be writing the whole time and never read what I've written, but the process of writing helped me to remember it, And others, I knew this one guy, he was phenomenal. Never studied, didn't do any homework, but he memorized and remembered everything that he heard at school. So explain to the group that as soon as everyone's listed 4 ideas, you can exchange that page with somebody else, who then adds to it 1 or 2 more ideas. Then trade this page for another, and repeat this for a while, and compare notes and discuss. Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. It's another way of doing it. What they didn't write down is, please write legibly, print, block letters or something. Or, formulate a statement of the group, have everyone silently write their questions and solutions. This is sort of like saying, ask someone to read his or her ideas to the group, which will lend itself well in like small groups or groups of 8, 10 or like that. And then you just repeat this process. I think there's another brainstorming one next. Everyone has had a turn, have the group select the most promising ideas for further analysis. And there you can use range voting as well. What's next one, Mark, please? Oh, role storming. This is going to be fun. Everyone selects a character and who's not in the room, pose the question, and review the ground rules for brainstorming, and then instruct the members to participate in brainstorming from the perspective of their imaginary character. All right? while the other half contributes from their own real-life experiences. After a few minutes, the former role players now leave their roles and other people take their place. You know, there's a number of other ones, this will come out in the handout.
What does debrief mean? At the bottom, debrief.
Come out of your character.
Well, to how was that process? How did that go? Did you like that? That kind
You're
of
talking about the facilitator now. Debrief
would debrief the group and say yes, Amia?
What is the role of whatever that name was called? Let's
Role
say
storming.
Be Donald Duck, and
That's
my
exactly
perspective
what I
is Donald Duck. What is the point of that?
No, you express yourself from the
His language.
from. It breaks up the discussion.
Like what he
You're
thought about
Reagan,
it,
you're Donald Duck.
what his idea on the issue was.
Well, that's a good idea too.
I just thought that was kind of
Hey, what would Don? Hey,
saying it in a character's name
Napoleon.
because it would make it more easy.
how do we come up with creative solutions? We do something a little oddball every once in a while, right?
Make them
Yeah.
remember.
And then what's the Roadrunner's perspective? You know?
Well, isn't it constructive, let's say, okay, about the Heartland thing, to one of us take the role of one of the executives and say,
Yeah.
look, this is a perfect place to place this. This is right at the intersection of a major railroad and a major freeway, and it's right in the center of a 6-county area that's not covered yet. No brainer.
What's the take the role of the truck drivers that bring the stuff in here, or from this person or that person? The people who are working at the grain elevator. How would they like it being in this community where everybody's kind of a little hostile to what they're doing? Different types of role storming. Okay, to look at it from different perspectives.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to add with respect to the role storming, if they've proven that when a person learns a different language, they begin to think in a different way, because the words of a different language convey ideas that the other language doesn't have. So it's a good
Different perspective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Next part. Oh, did you want to go over that? Okay.
Yeah.
Generate a list of situations or conditions that are analogous, similar to the problem at hand. For example, support a group's goal is to increase its funding. Members could list all types of growth: plant growth, growth of a city, and then pick one of those analogs or analogies, you could say. Describe it in detail. And sometimes looking at it, okay, well, how would our Fairfield grow if this was a plant? What would it need? What would it enjoy? What would be supportive of that? And using that analogy, think about where the different components of activities would fit in with that. How would we nurture that plant called Fairfield? Now encourage a group to consider each analogy in light of the original problem. Okay? What's that?
Weeds. If it's a plant, if Fairfield is a plant and weeds are encroaching.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah, and and weeds.
Toxic weeds.
And weeds are plants that we haven't found a good use for, right?
Maybe Roundup Ready.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a very...
Did you cook out yet?
Moment of silence.
Wait.
So facts and opinions. Yes, what's a fact and what's an opinion? So this gets into some nuts and bolts about that. We're going to have to stop in about 10 minutes here. But how do you get into this? You can 2 sheets of paper. We can do brainstorm. What are all the facts? And what are opinions? And then analyze which is which, okay? Ask them, what do you know about this topic? Have each group member write his or her answers on sticky notes and place one on the facts column and one on the opinions column. And if you're not sure, write it on both. Yeah, and the notes should be posted as soon as they are written so everyone can read them, as they're coming, right? Reading often promotes new, and the facilitator can read them out too. Participants can continue posting ideas until the time's up. And then the group can observe, look at that, see the reflections on what's going on. Mark?
I'll try to keep this quick. There's a group called New Warriors. It's a men's group, and it deals with a process called clearing.
Mm-hmm.
And clearing involves separating the facts from the opinions, and those opinions are called judgments. And in the judgment, they're called judgments to direct it back to the person to realize they're making a judgment on the issue. And then there's two more parts to that. What I want, determine what the other person wants to clear the
air. Yeah, clear the air. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, and that's good in a relationship type of situation, or some incident has gone on with you and some others, right? What are the actual true, facts? Separate out all the opinion or the emotion. What factually took place here? All right. Nonviolent communication is very big into that. Understanding what the facts are and what your values are, and then how you feel when those values are not met. Who's taken nonviolent communication training or read up on it? A few of you. Great. Excellent skill, and that's something. So this is a fun little a game here that we do. I don't know what we have time for. What I would like to do, though, is I'd like to call myself a professional activist. I like to do things that will help out communities. I am going to pass my hat. And if you'd like to contribute something, it would be... Oh, it's already done? Fantastic.
It wouldn't hurt to do it again.
Wow, you guys are way ahead of me, man.